or Gestalt psychology is my topic, which is focused on learning cognitive perspective. Okay, so this Gestalt psychology served as the foundation of the cognitive perspective in teaching or perspective to learning. So when we say the cognitive perspective, no, it is more widely held than the behavioral perspective, perhaps because it is more flexible or flexibly admits related to the mental constructs such as the traits, beliefs, memories, motivations, and emotions. No? So it also opposed the external and mechanistic focus of behaviorism. It considered the mental processes of perception, you know, and now we can see the advanced organizer here about the Gestalt psychology. So under that, we have the Gestalt principle, okay? And we have some here the laws. So first is the law of proximity, second is the law of closure, third is the law of good continuation, fourth is we have the law of good pregnancy, and last one is the law of figure or ground. So meron din dito ang insight learning, and we have the last is the life space. Under that is the inner forces and outer forces. So by moving on sa ating pagdidiscuss, matatalakay din natin yung kung ano ang ibig sabihin nun. So, Gestalt theory was the initial cognitive response to behaviorism. So it emphasized the importance of sensory holes and the dynamic nature of visual perception. So tulad nga nung sinabi kanina, or regarding doon sa video na ating napanood, is makita ang isang bagay sa isang kabuuan. Ano? So the term Gestalt means a form or configuration. Kabuuan or buo. So psychologists Max Wertheimer, Wolfgang Kohler, and Kurt Kafka, so they studied the perception and concluded that perceivers, or what we call the learner, are not passive but rather active. So ibig sabihin daw na ang pag-uugali ay hindi maaring maunawaan sa mga tuntunin ng mga maliliit na bahagi nito dahil ang sinasabing buo or kabuuan ay mas malaki kaysa sa kabuuan ng mga bahagi nito. Ibig sabihin, mas naiintindihan ng bata or ng learner kapag nakikita niya muna yung kabuuan or buo ng isang bagay bago niya matiyak ang parte nito ay kabilang sa kabuuan ng isang bagay. Okay? So, we can say that they suggested that the learners do not just collect information. Hindi lang sila masasabi natin passive, but they are active. They are actively process and restructure data in order to understand it. So, kumbaga, pinoproseso nila ito para makakonstruct or ma-restructure din yung kabuuan kung ano ba yung bagay na yun para mas lalo nilang maintindihan. So now we will go in the Gestalt principle. First is the law of proximity. So elements that are closer together will be perceived as a coherent object. When objects we are perceiving are near each other, we perceive them as belonging together. Ibig sabihin, ang law of proximity daw po ay ito yung tinatawag na batas na kung saan ay nagtataglay ng isang idea na ang mga bagay na malapit ang ugnayan sa isa't isa ay magkakasama or magkakaugnay. Yan. So, you can see the picture. Ito po sa ating left side, no? Next, we have the law of similarity. Ano po ba itong law of similarity na ito? Elements that look like similar will be perceived as part of the same form. Law of similarity, ibig sabihin, ito daw to ang batas na daw na ito ay nakabitin sa ideya na ang mga kaugnay o katulad ng mga bagay na magkakasama, binibigyan din na nito na ang mga bagay ay itinuturing na may kaugnayan sa isa't isa. So simply, we say that we link similar elements together. Ayan. So in the image above or dito sa pinakita kong picture, most people see vertical columns of the circle and squares. And next, we have the law of closure. Ano po ba ito? We tend to fill the gaps or close the figures we perceive. Ano po ba itong closure na ito? So, ang ating isip ay may kaugalian na punan yung mga puwang o mga nawawalang mga bahagi ng ilang figures, no? So, law of closure, objects grouped together are seen as a whole. We tend to ignore gaps and complete contour lines. So, makikita natin po yan, may triangle dyan and circles. In the image above, there are no triangles or circles, but our minds fill in the missing information to create familiar shapes and image. So, nagiging familiar tayo na, ay, ito pala is medyo may pagkahugis na bilog, may hugis na sulok. Okay? And next, we have the law of good continuation. Ano kaya itong law of good continuation na ito? Individuals have the tendency to continue contours whenever the elements of the pattern establish an implied direction. Ang law of good continuation, no? Ano kaya itong ibig sabihin ay ang pagkokonekta ng mga individual na ang bahagi ng sama-sama upang bumuo sila ng tuloy-tuloy na pattern para bumuo ng kahulugan. Yan. So, yun po yung ibig sabihin ng good continuation. Now, continuity, meaning to maintain order. So, the brain will carry on any visual patterns. So, also continuation happens when the viewer's eyes moves, whether smoothly or disjointly through an object into another. So, makikita natin dyan, no, yung continuity. And next, we have the law of good pregnance. Okay? So, the stimulus will be organized into as good as figure as possible. Ibig sabihin, no? Tinatawag din itong law of good figure o law of simplicity. So, nangangahulugan na ito ang mga aralin na tila napakahalaga ay naaalala, no? And naalala natin ang mga pinakamahalagang, example nito, naalala natin yung pinakamahalagang bahagi ng aralin o ng isang aral na nagpapasigla sa ating mga isip para tayo ay matuto. So, ayan na. The law of pregnancy is sometimes preferred to as the law of good figure or the law of simplicity, tulad ng sinabi ko kanina. So this law holds the objects in the environment which are seen in a way that makes them appear as simple as possible. Makikita natin yung figure dito na meron tayong sulok at meron tayong square. No? Last one is the law of figure or ground. Ano ba ito? We tend to pay attention and perceive things in the foreground first. No? So viewers will perceive an object and the surface ground, even the shapes are put together. So na-identify natin to agad. Ano ba itong parang itsura na ito or ano ba tong figure na to, na-identify natin agad kung ano ba ang kinalalabasan or pinapakita nito. So, Gestalt psychology adheres to the idea of learning taking place by discovery of insight. Ano ba itong insight na to, no? So, in learning theory, this is an immediate and a clear learning or understanding that takes place without over trial and error testing, no? So, the idea of insight learning was first developed by Wolfgang Kohler, in which he described experiments with apes where the apes could use boxes and sticks as tools to solve problems. So makikita natin dito sa aking ipinresentang picture na mga apes. He used boxes and sticks as tools to solve problems. So makikita natin yan, no? Sa paggamit ng mga boxes and marami ding sticks to solve a problem, no? So insight occurs in human learning when people recognize relationships, no? And they can help them to solve any problems or a new problems. So, Gestalt principles and the teaching learning process. Ngayon, itong theory na to pa or Gestalt principles, paano natin siya may i-apply sa teaching and learning process, no? So, according to Kurt Lewin, expounded on Gestalt psychology, his theory focuses on life space. Ano ba itong tinatawag ng life space? He said an individual has an inner and outer forces that affect his perception and also his learning. So kapag sinabi nating inner forces, no, it includes yung motivations, attitudes, feelings, emotions ng isang learner. At pag sinabi naman po nating outer forces, may include the attitude and behavior of the teacher and classmates. No? So, and Gestalt's theory focused on the experience of a contact that occurs in here and now, no? So it considers with interest the life space of teachers as well as the students. And it takes interest in the complexity of experience without neglecting anything, but accepting and amplifying all the emerges. It stimulates learning as experience and experience as a source of learning. The time necessary for the assimilation and for cognitive and existential remodeling is respected. The contact experience between teachers and students or the learners is a given value. An authentic meeting based on sharing ideas and so ayun yung meaning ng Gestalt psychology. So, I hope na ma-apply din natin ito sa ating teaching and learning process. And next, I will be discussing about the information processing theory.